What's up, y'all? This is Soup Bowl. We're going to take a look at the explanation to lose your IQ for free, which is my newest troll level. And there's not a whole lot of interesting stuff in this, but I figured I'd still make one anyway because, you know, there's a few things that I kind of want to show off. So, yeah. Alright, so this first room is pretty simple. There's not a whole lot going on. There's just a few trigger mechanisms off screen. So, we already know what happens with the skip screen. There's just a spring above it here, and then it gets launched off screen, and then comes back and attacks you. So this is just a bit of weird jank. So when you put a piranha creeper with a Thwomp like this, you don't have the P-switch here. The Thwomp immediately moves left a little bit. You can kind of see that happening. So with the P-switch, it keeps it there until you hit it, and then Thwomp will move, and then you cannot escape this at all. No matter how low you try to jump, you'll always get caught in the clouds. So that's just a bit of weird jank I decided to put at the beginning there. So instead what happens is that you ride this little Thwomp here, and then once you get to a certain distance, this Thwomp activates the P-switch, and then there's another Thwomp that activates the switch once you get far enough. Then the switch triggers this down here. It's just a bomb that will explode, and the reason I have this piranha here is to keep this bomb from walking off screen. And the reason it's like this is because I don't want people falling down here and then surviving. So if this block right here were one higher, which would keep the bomb in place better, then they can actually drop down here and survive. And I don't want that to happen because that would be bad. So I have to put this all the way down here, and then this piranha is here just to keep the bomb in place. So then, obviously, when you hit the switch, this platform will light up and then bounce the launcher up and explode the bomb. So that's all. A lot of people tried to escape the Thwomp, so they wanted to jump up onto this launcher here, and I tried my best to make it not possible, but unfortunately it just wasn't good enough. So these Kaizos are here just to try to prevent them from jumping back up. You know, once they get here, a lot of people want to jump up. And then, you know, because once the Kaizos end, they were able to jump up. But the Kaizos end because if there was a Kaizo here and they hit this Kaizo, then the Thwomp would actually die early because of this, because it goes upwards. So that's why the Kaizos end right here. And unfortunately, like I said, it wasn't quite enough to prevent them from jumping back out. So the second room is pretty simple as well. So all this is right here is just a timing mechanism. So once you spawn out of this door here, the Piranha Creeper will creep along down here, and then you'll see this mushroom coming at you. But what happens is that this smaller spike ball will hit this block first, and then this bigger one is timed just right so that it hits this. And bigger spike balls activate exclamation blocks. They activate them all the way, whereas opposed to only one spike ball will hit it just once. There wasn't really any point to this troll other than to make it kind of funny and give you more of a false sense of security on this Piranha Creeper troll. So all this is here is just a Thwomp, you know, horizontal positioning troll, or activation. And then once you get to a certain point on here, the Thwomp will activate, which sends the spring up into the Piranha Creeper, which is hanging out right here at this point. And then the spring pushes the Piranha Creeper back, which kind of makes this act like a conveyor. And not a lot of people fell for this because it was kind of easy to dodge, but I still liked the idea enough to put it in. So yeah, I couldn't really optimize it or make it better, but that's just how that went. Okay, so this room is also very simple. So all that happens here is that you come out of this box and then climb. first you're able to climb the tree with a mushroom, but then once you take damage, come around here, and then once you're small, you actually can't grab this tree, and I think that's just because of this platform down here. So this platform makes you stand like a couple pixels lower than the ground. So if I were to put ground here and try to climb, you can actually climb it with little Mario. But since this platform is here, you can't climb it. So then you just go flying off the edge, because I basically trained them to climb it earlier with the mushroom. So this right here is actually a troll. I actually developed this troll while I was playtesting, because I figured out that people weren't actually checking for this Kaizo first before coming back. So what a lot of people did was try to take damage because they had this neat little idea that they could beat the donut and not have to go all the way back around. But that's exactly what I wanted them to think. And so by going down here, taking damage, going back up, they realize the Kaizo is there and the icicle respawns. So yeah, that's an actual troll that I included, which is kind of fun. I think Carl fell for that, and that was my favorite part of the video. That was really funny. So yeah, that's about it. I mean, so the whole deal with this tree is that you can actually see a few pixels at the top of the tree. Not in editor though. Notice how you can't see any in editor, but once you hit the play, you can actually see some at the very top there. So since people can see the top, they think, oh, I can probably just climb the tree to the top real quick. But actually, this platform is here, which is just out of sight, and they can't see the top of this platform. So they end up getting stuck up here. These conveyors are actually to push them into the wall so that the wall slide down this shaft here. And then, because it's kind of funny, for some reason, when Mario just slides down the shaft to his death, so I just decided to put that in. Alright, so this room is pretty simple. A lot of people were actually confused about this and just how it worked. So I'll show that off here. Okay, so basically we have a launcher, we have a bomb, and this will be on the off state, which means it'll be going this way when you enter the room. And this up here is the contraption to flip the switch. So if you stand down here first and not do anything, this launcher will come up and block you. Why is that? Because there's a bomb down here, a lit bomb, that will hit this block, and then this block is covering the bouncing platform. So once this breaks, it'll land on the platform, bounce up to the cloud. So why doesn't this activate after that? That's because of this bomb right here. This bomb will explode the... Okay, my drift is absolutely terrible. The bomb will explode the spiny shell that is the activator for the switch. So if you do absolutely nothing down here, without even jumping, that's what happens. This bomb, at the same time, this bomb will explode the spiny, and this bomb will explode this. So, so then they think, oh, I should have just gone fast. So they'll try to go fast, they'll jump up to these clouds, and then there is some switch blocks behind you, which kind of blocks them. And then that's where this comes in. So once the switch activates, this will explode the wall, and then the launcher will shoot out a mushroom. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It's kind of a fun little twice-see contraption thing that I built. I'll explain this later. Alright, so, first room after checkpoint 1. So this is very interesting. So I was basically messing around with the cat suit a lot, and I found a whole bunch of jank, surprisingly. So, this first one is just, I mean, you see what happens, right? It's just like clawing the block makes you go through the wall, basically. And I wanted to try to make this more psychological than it was, because I basically put this P block here because I wanted people to think that there was going to be a P switch in this block that would come up and activate, so that they, basically wouldn't do anything, and not dodge the troll better, like fall for the troll better. But that didn't really work out. Nobody really thought that far ahead, I don't think. This is just for anti-soft lock right here, because you can't actually survive this and then not go through the wall, which some people got pretty confused by, unfortunately. But everybody figured it out eventually. I figured since it was right after the checkpoint, it was a good place for this, because it was kind of the more confusing section. So once they figure out that they can go through the wall, they'll try to hold left. This was the idea anyway. Some people, again, didn't really do this, but the idea was that they would hold left to stop themselves from going in this pit here. So by holding left, once you hit the block, you actually grab this entire wall here and then just climb up to this 30-coin death pit area. So that's supposed to be the troll bear. And then once they fall for that, they come up here, and they don't have to duck or anything. They can just survive it. So they just sit here, and then, you can try to claw these blocks, then you just get sent right back into this area. So that was the entire intent of this route, was to go in this box like 2 times total. Sadly, this wall climbing troll was more spaghetti than I wanted it to be, but there was really no way I could do anything about that, sadly. So I just left it in. It was pretty spaghetti heavy, and unfortunately, I just, again, couldn't really do anything about it. But it was right after a checkpoint, so people did get better at it, which is nice. So that kind of paid off. So the solution here is to actually duck and press Z. So you would think that you would go back in this pipe, but since this bouncy platform is over this, it just doesn't let you go back in the pipe, for obvious reasons, right? Yeah. Anyways, so holding down and Z is what the solution is here. If you actually were to approach this brick, if you were actually to approach this and then press Y, it never happens. And you actually hit the blocks, but for some reason you go into the ant trooper. And then that was actually kind of sort of a troll that I just included. I mean, the death was funny, so that's basically all there was to it. There wasn't really an intended troll. Okay, so for this part, really simple. It's just a Thwomp on slopes, because Thwomps always behave like this on slopes, and yeah, just game physics. So yeah, I mean, all that happens here is that you hit the block and it just comes flying at you. If this were a question block, it does the exact same thing. It's literally just any single block you put here that is hittable, and the Thwomp will go right through it. It's pretty bizarre. But yeah, again, it's very well known jank, and it was a pretty funny troll, and it actually paid off really well. Something to note here that I found really interesting is that if you're not Cat Mario and you were to hit this block, for example, you actually survive on that little ledge. But since you're Cat Mario can't survive on little ledges like that. As you could, if you guys can remember from Wilfred's level, he had that setup where you like tumble down the stairs with the cat suit, and that's because he couldn't stand on those little tiny ledges. And that's basically the same thing going on here. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It wasn't like, there wasn't anything to this other than it was just interesting. Okay. So there's no troll here. All that there is here is to make you take damage twice in an efficient manner. And, you know, I don't want people to take damage by going through 2 different icicles, because that just takes too long. So I just put this in. It's kind of interesting how you can't duck at all on these dash pads. So you just can't get through unless you're Small Mario. Okay, so this room is really quite bad. I did not do this room very well at all. So it went through a lot of revisions, a lot of testing, and I eventually came up with this design. And it still didn't, I'm still not super happy with it, just because it's kind of boring still. But anyway, this is what it ended up to be like. So this troll has some backstory to it. Originally, what was going to happen was there was going to be a POW here. And the POW would be on this platform that would also bounce up with this mushroom once you enter the room. So you actually can't see that POW at all. Just notice how you can't see it. So if you were to jump in here, which I believe that most people would not try, you would see a POW, and then you could actually activate this POW and get out with the mushroom. Well, obviously that doesn't work with this setup right here, because you take damage from the spike ball. But it was going to be a very similar setup to this, where you actually needed to jump up to get the mushrooms. But what I decided was that was a little too boring of a solution, right? So I just kind of scrapped that idea. It was going to be kind of cool, but I figured that a lot of people wouldn't even realize that this POW was hidden up here. So it wasn't going to be as cool as it was intended to be, you know, initially. So that was the idea for this troll here. So this troll is kind of funny. It's actually a layered troll, so most people knew about this, but if you try to place a POW where a clear pipe is, it just goes right through the clear pipe. So that's kind of the first part of that troll. And then the next part is that you realize to place it against the wall. And then you can they'll probably be like, oh, I can go in the pipe now. So they'll try to go in the pipe, but the Thwomp activates the switch, and for some reason, I think because, again, this platform is lower than the ground, so there's like a little space between this POW and the ground. You can kind of see how that's the case. So while you're falling on this POW, you actually can't enter the pipe because you're still kind of in that falling state. You're still falling on the POW. So you have to be fully on the POW to be able to enter the pipe. And I think that's why you can't enter it at all. Like, even if you're way back here and trying to get a running start, you just can't enter it no matter what you do. So I think that's because you're still, like, falling on the POW. If that makes sense. So yeah, this is that setup. So this P-switch troll is pretty interesting, right? So this P-switch basically hyperspeeds upwards. This is the setup here. For some reason, when you have a Thwomp, this Thwomp will actually not despawn because of this block down here. I just found this actually while I was editing stuff. And it's pretty useful because, like, you can make the Thwomp go... You can, like, do a bunch of things with this. So... yeah, it just does this weird thing. So this Thwomp is kind of cool because it has two different uses, right? It first of all activates this switch, and then it acts as, you know, the setup for this P-switch troll. So I thought that was kind of cool. So you actually have to activate the switch first before you can go into this pipe. And then once that's activated, it's fine because I have a little switch block down there to prevent that from happening. Okay, so then you can kind of see how that works, right? The P-switch just launches you upward, and then it sucks you into this pipe. And then obviously once the P-switch is finished activating, you'll be inside this pipe with both the P-blocks activated, with nowhere to go, so then you just die in the pipe. So that's the troll there. It was kind of uninteresting. I kind of wish I used this for a better purpose, but it turned out alright. So, yeah. Okay, so this was in fact a twice down here. As you can see, there's no door that leads down to this part, so that's the whole reason for this. I had enough doors to actually to actually put a door down here if I wanted to, but the reason I didn't use 4 doors, I only used 3, which is ultimately why I had to hide this section down here to prevent people from seeing the door that it takes you to. So the reason I had 3 doors was because of this way over here. I can't put a warp box right here because then it's hard to hit this question block. I'm probably getting a little ahead of myself, but if anybody remembers this part of the level, you had to hit this block, which was activated right about here, which basically spawn blocks these donuts in order to proceed. So I can't use a warp box right here because once they pass this part, it's actually too hard to hit this block without going into the warp box accidentally. So I needed a door because it's safer that way. So that's why I ended up using 3 doors here instead of 4. Which is why I had to hide this part down here, like I was saying. So that they can't see the door down here. Okay, so for the twice room, is over here. Again, you can see that there's no door up here, but nobody can see that because it was way up here. So, since you're down here doing your business, you just can't see the door up here. And then you don't get, I mean, it's to lower suspicions, essentially. Okay, so this hint was kind of bad. Like, again, this whole thing turned out to be really rinky-dinky. Like, it wasn't that great. But the reveal was kind of nice, so that was a good payoff, at least. Okay, so this part is very simple. It's just a thwomp that actually activates once you get to a certain distance. Right, so that's all there is to it. It's just a thwomp with a bomb. Notice how the thwomp goes through like 3 spaces, which is very strange for a 4-space thwomp. So nobody actually noticed that, which was really interesting. But the thwomp, I mean, goes through like 3 blocks of wall, and then crushes you through everything else, which is kind of bizarre. It's just pure 3D World slope thwomp jank. That's all there is to it. It's kind of like that other setup over here with this guy. And then, of course, if you go in the pipe, you'll see please use door. And then there's a little buzzer that says you went the wrong way. You'll come back out, you'll get in this koopa car, and then this launcher will kill you. It's just a stupid funny thing. If you actually decided to try to avoid death here, I think that you could actually do that. So I put these twisters here because if you were to try to avoid death and try to crash the koopa car before this launcher fires you, you can actually crash the car and then try to get in the door. So these twisters are actually here to prevent that. But I don't think anybody ever did that, so... Alright, CP2 room. So this one was pretty interesting. There was a lot of interesting setups in this room here. Yeah, this one's going to be kind of hard to explain, but I'll do my best here. Let me put a switch here. Okay, so... what people are supposed to do is try to jump over this 50. Which was kind of, it's kind of a bad-ish troll, but I used it because there was like nothing better to do. So, try to avoid, you know, the coin box down there and then just fall it. It's supposed to be like, lol, the 50 coin box moved, so you get the 50 that was actually over here and not over there, kind of thing. So that's all there was to this, but the contraptions for this are pretty interesting, so that's why it's worth showing off. So the simple switch activator for the first time you come in is just this thwomp up here. So it only spawns on the off state, which is the first time you enter this room, before you get the checkpoint. So this thwomp will hit the bomb, which explodes the switch, and then sends this conveyor right here will switch directions, and then move this forward. But you'll notice that it can't at the moment because of these blocks. So I have this bomb here that will explode these blocks once you enter the room. And again, this bomb only spawns on the blue state. So, in other words, once you enter the room, you can kind of actually hear that explosion once you enter the room. Okay, there you can see the explosion, you know, the little shockwave thing that happens. So that explodes because of the second time you spawn at the checkpoint. So when you spawn at the checkpoint, this will be on, and this conveyor will already be moving left. And I don't want these monsters to move after you spawn from the checkpoint. So that's why these blocks are here, because then this guy won't be here, and then these launchers have nowhere to move. So that was the point there. The point of these pokies is to kill the player, because if they were, you know, if this were just a pit, you could actually fall down here and trigger this thwomp, and too early. So I put these pokies here so that people don't accidentally discover the thwomp, you know, on an early run. So this thwomp comes out because there's another switch that activates. So on the on state, when you spawn from the checkpoint, this spring will spawn, and then when the switch activates, it's basically a whole timing thing, right? So the spring will move along this conveyor, and then basically push this thwomp into the block, and the thwomp will activate, which sends it flying upwards. So that's really all there is to it. It's just more thwomp slope thing. You'll notice that the second time the switch activates, it didn't actually activate the first time. So how does that happen? That is because of this contraption. So what this pokey is here to actually prevent this POW from moving. So this was kind of an interesting setup. See how that POW kind of sits there? That's just because the Pokey is there. There's no other reason for that. So once you hit this checkpoint, that little spiny beetle comes down and kills the Pokey, which then makes this POW able to move into position down here. So you'll notice that this thwomp right here will hit this POW. So the order of operations of this room is that you come down here, after coming out of the pipe, this thwomp will activate, which sends these these launchers to the left, and then into this 50 box. And then, once you get the checkpoint, you'll come back over here, and then the launchers will move back to their original position, which they are right now. Which are essentially like, you know, it's two-layered trolls on the checkpoint, so once you get the checkpoint, you'll try to like slide down this wall here, trying to get onto the launchers that are right here. But then, of course, the switch activates, which moves these, and then you'll just fall straight into this box. So that was the point of that second half of that troll. And then again, this contraption will allow the switch to activate. So if you were to slide on this wall, the swamp just doesn't activate it until because it's like 1 pixel away from the wall or something. So it just doesn't work. So the thing about this setup is that it's actually pushing the thwomp upwards and kind of to the right just a tiny bit. So it's basically this sloped conveyor is also serving as a horizontal thing, you know, like it moves the thwomp over to the right like a few pixels to cover that you know, few pixel difference. I've talked about this in some of my other videos, like my level video. But yeah, this is to cover this. It was pretty difficult to find a setup for this that can solve this problem in 3D World, because 3D World is so restrictive with things. But luckily I was able to find this, and it worked out super well. Okay, so this is pretty interesting. I mean, it's kind of, it's almost Rube Goldberg-y, because, like, there's just, I mean, it's all just to activate 3 giant pufferfish into your face. So, what happens is that you hit this switch, you'll be on the off state, so these guys will spawn. There'll be twisters that'll be keeping these guys up, and the instant you hit this switch, these guys will be like up here because their hitboxes are actually smaller than their bodies. So they'll be like up here, right about here, and then the instant you hit the switch, the puffers will actually land on these switch blocks and then fall immediately, so that, you know, their parachutes only last until they hit the ground, right? So once you hit the switch, they'll be like already on the ground immediately. So they'll just fall straight away. And then these are of course here to also kill the twisters once the switch is hit. Okay, so for this troll here, this is kind of interesting. So you'll notice that the first time you come through here, you'll fall down to the bottom, and then you'll see the cat suit, but you won't see the spike that comes up in the second time. So that works because of this Thwomp right here. This Thwomp actually detects whether you get the cat suit or not. And you know, so once you get to a certain position, the Thwomp will activate, which releases this spike in this block. And then the spike will just kind of come in and body you if you just sit there for too long. So what you're supposed to do is just jump up and grab the cat suit quickly before the spike can get you. So that's the troll there. And then what happens here is that the purpose of these POWs, which I didn't explain before, is to kill these pufferfish. And the reason I want to do that is because of the next troll, which uses a bunch of switch states. So I don't want the pufferfish falling on their heads when they try to solve this troll down here. So that's why I have this here. This spiny will only activate once you come down here. It's also another positional detector. So the spiny activates this POW, which then causes a chain reaction to essentially kill these pufferfish, and then this last POW will not only kill the pufferfish, but also hit the switch down here. So unfortunately, since this switch is here, I can't really prevent it from hitting the switch. But since it did, I was able to make this contraption that accounts for a switch being hit anyways. So I'll try to explain this as best as I can. It's kind of a little difficult. So when you come into this room, you're on the off state, right? So this spike ball will be rolling right. This conveyor will be going left. So it will be up against this wall. But once the switch is hit, it will trigger this block, which has another spike ball. And then it'll be on the red state. So this spike ball will hang out like right here. It'll be going right, because that's the direction spike balls always go out of question box. So it'll be going right, this will be going left, which it is right now on screen. And it'll sit there until another switch is activated. So this stuff up here, this is like the off-screen stuff. This is the off-screen magic up here. So I'll try to explain this as best as I can, but again, it's kind of difficult to grasp. So let's say you hit it 4 times, right? So what happens is, if you remember from the level, is that this will end up going one more than it should have gone. So actually, like, the block will get hit without you actually hitting it, and then put this launcher out of position of the door. So that happens because once you hit the switch, once this bomb explodes, this switch will activate, which then sends this spike ball flying into the bouncy platform here, which then shoots it up into this block. So that's one spike ball. Now when it reveals the hint up here, which says 3x, okay, so now you come back and hit it 3 times. Now when you go over to the Thwomp activates this P-switch up here, which then, because a P-switch is getting activated, both of these spike balls will begin to roll on these conveyors, which have stopped because of the P-switch, right? So this spike ball will roll onto, so again, like, this spike ball will be right here. So then you'll have 2 spike balls hitting this, which sends it twice, which sends it back to its original position when you first got here. So then the screen will scroll, but then it'll say 2x instead of 3. So how did I make that happen? There is this contraption up here. So first of all, when you first spawn into this room, these spike balls will immediately hit this block, regardless of any conveyor action. So what I have in these blocks, well, I can't really take out because I max out on entities, but what I have in these blocks is a giant spike ball. The giant spike ball will basically spawn and crush its own block that it came out of right away. And the reason I have it like this is because, you know, I need to be able to break both of these walls over here, but the spike balls need to be rolling in the correct direction. You know, they can't be like rolling they can't be rolling left, which is the direction they roll when you spawn from this warp box. So by hitting the blocks always spawn spike balls rolling right. So that's the ideal solution for this problem. So again, when you come out of this door, the state will be off. This conveyor will be going left, and then this spike ball will be rolling right. So it'll be up against this wall. So once the switch is hit the first time from this guy right here, the conveyor switch, and then this will be going right, and this one will be going left. So then the spike ball will be hanging out right here. So then when you hit the switch a second time by hitting this block 4 times, this spike ball this switch will change a second time, and then send the spike ball into the wall here, which essentially breaks the scroll stop and allows the screen to scroll the hint. The very first hint, that is. So this is all custom scroll manipulation here. So very similar to this part down here. When the Thwomp activates the P-switch, the conveyors just stop completely, right? So both of these conveyors will be going left, but once the P-switch activates, they will stop, and then both spike balls will be able to roll into their blocks that destroy the scroll stop. So I basically have the scroll stop set up like this. So it's a very specific position where, like, notice how this is at the center of the screen right here, and on the very right of the screen that you're seeing right now is the scroll stop of the room, right? So once you break that scroll stop, it will move right up until this point. But then once this scroll stop is broken up here, it will continue to scroll, but because I have set it up, in such a way that it will move downwards once it's past a certain point, then all I have to do is put a little screen scroll down here, and then that'll make the screen scroll down once it passes a certain block. So that's how I made that happen. It's kind of complicated. I mean, obviously you'd have no idea what I'm talking about if you didn't have Mario Maker and, you know, fool around with these custom scroll mechanics. But that's basically how I did that. Okay, so for this flying Pokey part, a lot of people found this pretty funny. This is, I have to confess, this is actually a setup that Alarin posted in one of the Discords. And I was like, oh hey, I could actually really use that for a transitional troll in this level. And he was like, cool, you can have it. And I was like, nice. So it's like, it was like a little mutual exchange there. So basically, I mean, if you don't know what this glitch is, it's basically like, you know, it's I don't know what you call it. I guess I'll just call it the flying Pokey head glitch. But when you have a Pokey that, the Pokey will be right here, right, when this whole thing spawns. And then, if you destroy everything but the Pokey head of a Pokey, then, you know, it takes a little bit of time to fall to its, to the ground. So during that time, you can actually move the Pokey's body as if it were still there. And the Pokey actually moves along with its body, with its invisible destroyed body that you just destroyed. So that's all that there is to this. It's just like destroying the Pokey parts, and then the head just flies with the body that was no longer there. So this launcher basically moves at hyperspeed to carry the Pokey basically through the wall and through everything. And during that time, yeah, the Pokey just travels through literally everything. Walls, you name it. So yeah, that was the whole point of this troll here. It's mostly just a transitional troll to stall for the P-switch, because I don't want them, you know, going into this pipe with the P-switch on. Come down here, you see that you need a hammer suit, right? So there's a nice little hammer suit right there, so maybe I should just grab the key first. But then they realize that the key isn't there, so then they try to go past the workbox, but it just sucks you in anyway. So why is that the case? That is because of this right here. There is actually a point to all of this happening off to the right side of the screen. So you would think that it was just a distraction, but it's actually, there is more to it than just a distraction. So this setup in particular, like if you activate a whole ton of breakable blocks at the same time, then for some reason, if you try to spawn a key from a block during that time, the key does not spawn. And actually I can demonstrate that right now using these hidden blocks right here. So during this time where a whole bunch of things are breaking, it's just something weird that happens where, like, see, even a coin doesn't spawn properly during that period of time. Then after that is the case, then after everything resolves, then the coin will spawn. So yeah, it's just really weird jank. So after they get the hammer, they'll break this, and then this part over here. I'm not super happy with how this part turned out either, because it wasn't really all that funny. It's more on the cool tech side of things than it was funny, you know. But most people figured it out. It was kind of interesting. So this block actually spawn blocks those donuts. You can kind of see how the setup works. There's a Thwomp that is up here that will lower these donuts, and then this block here, which is actually over here, this block will spawn block the donuts. You can kind of see how the spike ball moves, so that it will hit the block. So these donuts actually use this platform to bounce up to the Thwomp up here. So it's just a fast way to speed things up to lower the donuts. And this all has to happen before the player can activate the switch up here, because if they activate the switch too fast, let me try to show an example. So if they activate it too fast, you can actually see everything is just disrupted down there. So this all happens in a period of time of like 3 seconds. So the purpose of this twister is just to change the direction of one of these donuts. So this twister actually has a purpose, believe it or not. And if it were not here, this setup would not work. So you can kind of see how it's actually slower without the twister, because the donuts collide with each other a second time. And I don't want that happening, because that is a lot slower. So that's what happens. This is, I think, the fastest possible way to activate both of these donuts. Alright, so for the ending, not a lot going on here. It kind of, like, if anybody understood the little text room up here, it said this ending blows. Some people didn't catch on to this, but basically it's a pun that it blows because of the twister down here. And it'll like blow you up here. So yeah, haha, funny pun. So what happens is, I mean, so I could have used an exclamation block, but I didn't, because this is actually faster than an exclamation block. And it actually does make a difference. You can actually get out of the twister with an exclamation block. So this setup here is basically just, you know, hyperspeed blasters. Yeah, that's really weird. It only works for some reason when you spawn from the pipe, I think. I'm not sure why that is, but it just does. It works that way. So yeah, you can kind of see how it works. Both of the launchers actually hyperspeed upwards and blows you up to this platform up here. So there is no way to dodge this. You have to go in this pipe. Now what happens here is that you spawn from this pipe, and that gives you enough time to spawn this down here, which is, I mean, this pipe is basically low enough so that the screen is scrolling differently. And I can't do a switch state here because two different things happen on the switch states. So, you know, I can't actually do a switch state mechanism here. So I had to do this, and this worked out just fine. It's just a spike ball that spawns, causes a chain reaction, and then spawns this spike ball right here. This spike ball will break the wall over here, hit the POW, which basically kills itself, and then it's just a simple ending troll right here. If you fail to go into the pipe fast enough, and you just want to explore the breakable wall over here, you get screwed. And that's all there is to it. It's a really dumb ending troll that actually worked out super well. And I'm kind of happy about it, to be honest. It really did. It's like one of my last minute decisions that was really dumb, but actually really good. So yeah, that's about it for this level. It was pretty fun to make. Like, there was... I mean, it was obviously a challenge going into a 3D World level in the first place, because it's just so restrictive with, you know, tech and mechanisms and setups, you know, it's just really, really, you know, restrictive. There's just no one-ways, there's no, you know, flying bombs can't fly through walls. You know, most flying objects can't fly through walls in 3D World. You know, all of those crazy restrictions really... It's hard to make a 3D World troll level like this. But I pulled it off, and, you know, I probably won't ever be making another 3D World level ever again. So, yeah. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say. So I'll see you next time.